Welcome everyone to a new episode of Something Epic. I am super excited about this episode because I am a huge fan of full motion video, and these gents, Den and Andy from Not Games, have brought one of my favorite versions of that genre to the world with Not for Broadcast. Den and Andy, thank you so much for being here, and how are you both doing?
We're good, thank you, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We're really excited to be here.
So, you know, I am super hyped to have you here. I've been playing through the game off and on throughout the past couple of months. Congratulations on launch, by the way. That was awesome. It seems like so many folks are digging the game and having a bunch of fun with it. And I'm hearing, I saw Ezekiel the other day talk about it on his stream, and he was like, "This is one of the most fun experiences I've had in a long time." I want to start off with the beginning. What was when Not Games was becoming a studio? How did you all meet and decide that you wanted to do this amazing work?
Well, none of us knew we wanted to do this.
Yeah.
It's a real mismatch. So a lot of us have come from backgrounds of film and TV. So I've come from sort of a television background. And I worked in locations in the film industry, so I've had a lot of film industry sort of experience. We all were sort of actors. Some of us were actors, so in front of camera. Jay has been a director for many, many years and ran a charity. So we all came together through this charity that we were all working with or for.
Which was 10 years ago now.
About 10 years ago,
started.
Yeah. Back when we were more youthful than this. And believe it or not, I had shorter hair. And we decided to we'd tried many different sort of avenues of media. So we'd filmmaking, we'd done theatre, we'd done sort of live action kind of stuff. And we thought, why not try making a video game as part of a way to raise some money to support the charity? Because we had to fundraise everything for the charity. So we did like a game jam where we got all of our mates together. The only person who had any experience was Jay, who had worked for Domark previously and a couple of other companies way back at we're talking years ago. He's an old man, this guy. He's
a few decades ahead of us.
Yeah. And we kind of just game jammed this idea, and we came up with this crazy little idea to do a parody of a very simple mechanic in kind of a snake game, but using our knowledge and our comedy of sort of political comedy and satire and our skills as being voice actors, artists and things, that we could do everything in-house. So it's exactly what we did. We had all of the music was done a cappella, and all of everything in the game was all done by our voices. Mm-hmm. Many hours at 4 a.m. of just going and yeah, we just game jammed and came up with this crazy little game that we then put up onto. It was Steam Greenlight at the time, wasn't it?
Well, we went through a bit of a process. I mean, as with a lot of studios, obviously in your early days, like we tried to sell through our website first of all, didn't sell that well. Then we thought maybe we'll try it on the app stores on mobile because it's a Snake clone. Why not? Makes loads of sense. So we got on Android and Apple and this sort of thing.
That was a terrible idea, wasn't it?
So many hours of my life for so little return. And then we went through all of this different process over the next year-ish, and then basically went, we'll give it a chance. We'll go on Greenlight. And we went through. And we were on there for, I think it was like 2-3 months. Yeah. And then we'd kind of stopped checking, to be honest. We'd kind of gone, we'd given it our best shot. It didn't really work, blah, blah. And then suddenly we get this notification. You've been greenlit. And we just were like, sorry, what? we were ready to go. They were willing to put us on Steam. So
it's crazy. Yeah, that day when we were front page on the Metro, which is a big newspaper here in the UK.
Yeah.
It just blew up viral for about 24, 48 hours, and the sales just went through the roof, and we raised a lovely amount of money for charity.
Yeah.
And it gave us all that boost to kind of go, holy shit, let's do this as a job.
Well, exactly.
This is really good fun.
We love doing it. We're a bunch of mates. But as it turns out, right, giving away all your money to charity, it's not a great business decision. Yeah. There's not a lot left there to make the next game.
Yeah, we felt good, but we were poor as shit. We had no money to go and make the next game.
So we went off. We tried to make the next game, by living with our parents, taking basically no wages, kind of all of this jazz, as much as we cut corners. Exact same style, but we thought we'd take kind of satirized prestige Call of Duty. It was fine. We had all these great plans, these grand ideas, and we released that, and it flopped. There's no real elegant way to say it. It flopped. It went bad. we were crushed, and we kind of took a
I was in Australia at the time,
Yeah.
so I take no responsibility for that game at all.
Yeah, the other three of us were sat there
Those games I've worked on have done quite well. So.
But we kind of, that's where we all took a step back and say, Den was in Australia. When he came back, he went into film. Al, who's one of the writers directors on this game, he went to go off to do acting. Jay continued to do acting and some kind of coding stuff on the side. I sold my soul to the corporate world and went into sales and software and stuff like that.
That's where he lost the joy.
Yeah, exactly, back then.
That's where I lost mine.
But after that, Al had this idea 2017, so about 5 years ago. 5 years ago now. Of this idea of Not for Broadcast. He went, do you know what, guys? We're not great game makers. What we are is good storytellers. We are actors, musicians, comedians. So why don't we try and do that as a video game? And we went, sure, making a TV show into a video game, that sounds really easy, not stressful or expensive. So we went through that. I, fortunately, having sold my soul, had a little bit of cash lying around that I could fund the prototype. So Al and Jay worked on that. Then the four of us started going to pitches for publishers. And Tiny Build were mad enough to say yes after we kind of went through it. And we've never looked back. It's been a crazy ride, but it's been so good working with them. They've been a perfect partner for us. And then we were in early access, kind of releasing it, going through. I mean, as you very kindly said earlier, I mean, I think the thing that we kind of got shocked by, having done this for about 10 years and kind of relative obscurity to now, is not that we're particularly that well known.
I was going to say, to obscurity.
Yeah, now we're just obscure as opposed to massively. But like the response and stuff from our community, from streamers, from people we know, like people we were watching as kids and stuff that are doing streaming, and going, and they love the game and go through, and that's the craziest feeling. It's just having all these people going that you respect, going, this is, we really like this game, is amazing for us.
I mean, well deserved. It is, as a person who, when I sat down to kind of like dig through the game for the first part, it was in early access, and I was like, oh, this is really awesome. I'd seen something. I was just starting the process of like learning what it was to, I had actually just taken a broadcast class. And was like, oh, I know what it's like to sit in the control room and have that anxiety that's there. I messed up for the audience and didn't give you a chance to explain exactly what Not for Broadcast is. For folks who may not be as aware and smart and wonderful as us who don't know, give the folks at home a quick synopsis of what the game is.
So it is, it's essentially we call it a newsroom simulator, which is exactly what it isn't. It's basically what you are is you're in the broadcast room where you have come in as the cleaner and you've been plopped in the chair, and you get a voice over a tannoy or on the phone that basically says, well done, mate, I can't make it tonight. I'm going to talk you through how to run the news. Off you go. And you're sat in front of essentially 4 screens with 2 master screens either side, and you are in charge of running the show. So you can cut the cameras like 1, 2, 3, and 4. You select what goes out. You've got a bleep button. As the game progresses, you have interference that comes through. You have there's 2 different fractions that are fighting against each other with advanced and disrupt. You've got that dystopian story that runs underneath it. And it's kind of it's your way of telling. It's a very progressive story of how you decide how the story goes. So the way that you play it will be different to the way Andy plays it, to the way that I play it, and that's what we love about it, is the fact that when we see YouTube runs of people playing it, the comments underneath are, holy shit, how is this person still alive? It's like, of course that person might be dead in their story, but they're alive in the, and it has those different, and that's essentially the game in a nutshell, is you're in charge of the broadcast, but it gets really, shit goes mad. Like it's not as dull as I'm selling it. Like,
not at all.
I mean, the other thing, and the kind of key point, is like Dan has just described the gameplay and what the game is. But obviously, as we've kind of talked about earlier, one of the unique points is it's all FMV. It's all full motion video.
That's quite important.
As it goes, one of our USPs is that we're dealing with, we build real sets, we film real TV. Well, as real as we make. But it's all there and built and made with real people, and your choices are shown with real people and real consequences. So that's why I think that's part of why we've got the feedback we have. Uncanny Valley is quite a common thing as we get better and better games now, right? One of the best ways to avoid that is just have real people, because you can't get better than real life. So that's what we tried to do.
It's the thing that comes through, and especially like if you're a little bit older, right? You've had these experiences with full motion video that have been within a lot of previous much older games, because a lot of folks don't mess around in this space at all, because of the human layers of it, how many people you have to get together to make it happen, and when you have so many permutations of ways that stories can go in that way. Of all the ways to do this game, why was full motion video the route that you took for this?
It's a dumb idea. It's a really dumb idea, but it keeps me in a job because that's my part of the game. So it was. Do you know what it was? It was we were sitting there, and because we don't have a background in video games, and our first game, we did spend a lot of time making in 2D. And then we made the step into 3D, and we were like, oh, Unity's amazing, and yes, we can use this, and we can 3D model, but none of us had the experience to be able to make these characters. And then we thought, we've got at our disposal, we have an absolute plethora of actors who are incredibly talented and don't have much work, because that's the industry that those people work in. The acting industry, you get a job every now and then, but a lot of the time you're out of work and you're working in a bar or whatever it might be. And we thought there's no better way to show the story that these guys are writing than to have real emotion of a real actor portraying that emotion. And that you couldn't do the speech that Megan gives you halfway through the game. You couldn't get that emotion across in any other way than filming a real person giving you that performance. And once we had decided that we were going to do it that way, there was absolutely no doubt in our mind that we couldn't go back and do it any other way, because the best way to tell this story is through making a TV show and putting it into a video game. And that's kind of where we landed, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's exactly that. That's where our skill sets lie. I mean, I think it says something probably as a dev studio how, I'm going to say unique, because that's quite a flattering way to put it. But our first hire was obviously our lead programmer who came through. But there are 4 directors in this company. None of us are coders, which as a video game company, that's a little weird. So we kind of went through and went, we can't do the video game part of a video game, and we want to be a video game studio. So
we had, in the very early stages, we had Jason, who worked at Domark, who back in the day was a very good coder. But obviously coding had changed a lot in the years that he hadn't done it.
Yeah.
So he was writing a lot of kind of the legacy code, which some of it is still in the game, to be fair.
Not that our coders are particularly happy about it.
But, like the commenting structure and, the way things are done are completely different to back when he was doing it. So he coded the very early stages of the game. But as Andy said, none of us really had that experience. And what we do know how to do is do what we do best, film, edit, portray real life TV. That's what we're really good at. And that's why we went FMV route.
And our publisher asked a very similar question to you, which was basically because they spoke to us, being obviously their job was like, could we do it with mocap? Could we do it with animation? And as Dan said earlier, to really get that grasp and that kind of feeling and emotion, not really. It has to be people. And then they said, okay, well, we're going to do it. And the reason we're going to do it is because we think this has never been attempted before in the way that you want to work with F&B to this degree and this level. And the reason for that is either no one has ever done it correctly, so it's not been able to take off, or no one wants it. And we're going to find out. So we were like, great, glad it's your money, not us.
And it feels too like, as a person, when I'm playing through it and also having, while I'm going through the experiences, I'm thinking about some of my favorite movies and some of my favorite, sketch comedy stuff that I've seen in the world. I'm like, this feels like one of my favorite Zucker Brothers movies. It feels like Airplane. It feels like Amazon Women on the Moon. It feels like that kind of energy. And I don't think you can get that when you don't do that in full motion video. Like that snappiness that you're able to get when someone hits a line right. Like, what was it like to go through the process of directing for all of these kinds of permutations and all of these scenarios in which a player is going to be kind of manipulating all the work that you're building?
So we've battled really hard with this, especially moving forward, because we obviously moving forward, we need to be better than what we've already done. There's no point in doing what we've done again, because then you're at a standstill and people will go, well, these guys have got no fucking better, we're out. We have to improve. And it's really difficult, as you say, like we can't in a CG character, you can physically make, if someone presses that button, you can physically make whatever stage they press that button, you can change on a dime, because you can create that character to do that. Whereas for us, using full motion video, we have to film everything. So, you know, we try and have clever points where a player gets to make a decision here or here, and then whatever you do, you get the outcome of that. But we obviously can't do that at any point. And we're thinking of really clever ways of how we can make that switch happen during any period. And it is possible now with the deep fake technology, with, you know, there's tons of things out there now that in our heads, we're like, yeah, well, maybe we could have that work, and maybe we could, you know, have them be CG for a tiny bit while we do a change. You know, there's ways of merging the two together, maybe to hit that. But in terms of writing the permutations of how it goes, it really comes down. I mean, these guys take the credit. I mean, mainly Al and Jay, funnily enough, the two guys who aren't here.
We're the more presentable.
Yeah, exactly. We're the funny one. And like, Andy wrote all of the incidents, which is the bits that happen in between the story, which tells you your personal life. But the actual scripts for the first 3 episodes were written by the other two. But it came down to those two, really, in terms of understanding, you know, if this happens, then at that point in the story, this person's gone. And basically we have these, we call them murder boards, and they are just boards of just lines of, there's bits of string running from this person to this person to this person. This person's alive at this point, therefore they can't be here and here. And it just takes a load of pre-planning, you know, more than it would do if we're using CG characters.
And I think it's, I mean, a lot part of that is as well, like in a normal script, you'd have, you know, you have the dialogue, you have stage direction, you have all these. But the boys, when they wrote through a lot of this, and when I did a little bit of writing, as Dan says, I mainly on the instance, but basically you'll now see extra directions where it's like the player will now have to do this, and so like as Dan says, we tried to plan it, and you can see as the episodes went on, that interactivity got more and more.
Yeah, we got better at it.
Yeah, like there's a couple of, like there's an obvious choice, so spoilers if anyone hasn't played it. But in episode 2, in level 5. Where you can either play an advert or not play an advert, right? Very simple binary choice. And if you do that, the next scene, it plays out very different because the characters in the studio go, why did you or didn't you play that advert? So, but that is still hidden within, you're watching an advert so we can play the footage at a different time. In the finale, so the last ever level, we actually flip all the footage based on a single decision that happens in the last segment. And we have to do that within kind of a 5 seconds and hide it. So, because the player may or may not choose to play this big groundbreaking moment, and if they do, we have to change the footage there, and if they don't, we let it play on. So it's we're getting better and better, and I think planning for us, the big thing going forward is to try and get as close to the player presses X and the character says Y, like is it literally as a button press reaction. Hard to do with full motion, and the permutations that come out of that.
It's hard to do well, isn't it? Because then you're starting to get back into, as you were saying previously, about the old school FMV where you go, I want to interview Dr. So-and-so, and then suddenly a video pops up of the doctor going, well, I didn't do that. You know, and it's that old school way of, and suddenly you're getting back into that of, if this happens, then play this video. Whereas we want it to be more, you know, push the boundaries. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make FMV different.
And it's really interesting too, like just from a nuts and bolts perspective, because like if anyone who has ever edited a video together, you're trying to figure out good ways to make really precise, smart cuts when you're doing those things. And this is basically what the player is doing, right? But the stitching, the way you've all captured that has been so good, because I'm hitting stuff and I'm like, that just is seamless in the way that I've gotten from here to that part of that cut, that way that cuts back to here, while you're kind of, like you said, you're working in this fake, you know, control room. Those parts have been really interesting to just think about as a person who is making content and is figuring out. So what was the conversations around, like, when you started to figure out what your decision trees were going to wind up being? Did you have to go back and do a lot of refilming for stuff when you were like, oh, well, this didn't really nail the thing that I was hoping for? Like, do we have to bring people back in to do some of that stuff? Or did you just rock with it?
There was just, Like there was at the very beginning when we first started this, naive as we were, and I don't think Tiny Build were ever this naive, right? But we had said we'll film it all in rough, and then we'll put it out, and then we'll refilm everything so we can make changes as we.
Oh wow!
And the Tiny Build were like, sure, you'll do that. And what happened was we filmed it and we made it work. And we have done the odd reshoot here and there when a scene hasn't quite delivered how we'd wanted or has had to be tweaked for various reasons.
Right.
But realistically, we've actually done very well, I think, in terms of refilming and reshooting. And obviously, you need to say that never happened. What you see is the quality has just been what we've done, and we've never reshot because that would be crazy expensive to redo.
What we did do is when we very first started is we did what we call the scratch, and it's basically it was us in the show holding scripts, and we filmed it in a village hall with no set, no nothing, just to get the concept of putting these 4 screens up and seeing if it was going to work. And what we did is we found out some really key things, like we had this one sketch we'd written about this guy came in with his wife, and his wife ran off screen and kept being sick, and you had to bleep the person being sick. Because how do you know that she's being sick? Because she's not on camera. You can't see any cues. You've got no visual cue. Therefore, the player, it's impossible. And we learned
that was in the day before the waveform.
Yeah,
we didn't even have
that's what I mean. And that's when we learned at that stage. We were like, we can't have something happen off screen that we need to censor. So that was a learning curve for us. So we kind of threw the scratch footage, which was the only footage we shot before we went in for the stuff that you see in episode 1. That was the only learning curve we had of learning little things like that. But as we've gone along, things like, as Andy just mentioned, the waveform on the audio, that was never in there. The only reason we put that in was as a we wanted to make it more accessible for players. So if you were a deaf player, you can still see the waveform of the audio and you can still censor based on a visual cue.
Or if you're in a different language, for example, and you don't know what the English swear is, then you can then censor in time with it.
But an accessibility option that we decided to put into the game then made it easier for us to now add in things like what we did later on in the game with the political censoring, where we don't just, it's not just censoring now swear words, it's your thing is to stop them from saying these buzzwords that the government want you to say. And now it gives you that option to censor because we can check. And so those accessibility things have now allowed us to develop the game by...
I mean, we call them accessibility. Like some of those, I think, we were just like, they are just the player experience now, right? It's not even to make it easier. And like, it's just more fun. Yeah. Like originally with the advanced censoring, because the scratch footage, we filmed like the first level or what, a rough draft, and then a rough draft of like level 6, which is the Jeremy meltdown.
Right.
But there was some advanced censoring in that. And the way originally, when you had no waveform and just had to do it by ear, you got at the beginning of the level, and the levels can be, a long level can be 25, 30 minutes with all the ad breaks and everything. You got like a fax that just said, censor these phrases. And you had to remember, and if they came up, you had to censor them. Like, how was a player ever going to be able to do that? These things you just kind of learn as you go through.
But it was mechanic-wise, it's obviously it has adapted. But in terms of the video content, as we said, we shot the scratch, then we learned a few mistakes, and then we went straight in, and we've made mistakes. That's why you can see very slowly, but you can see across episode 1, episode 2, then episode 3. The production quality increases, the cleverness of the game increase, because we're learning as we're going along, making this game. Yes, we could go back and reshoot it now from day one and do it better, but it kind of has that lovely rawness to it, and that kind of that first, it's like when you go and watch a comedy show, and if we were to re-record this podcast because you hadn't pressed record and then we tried to start again, you wouldn't get these generic answers off the bat because you'd have that, and you don't get that. And that's what I think we got with that original footage is yes, it's not perfect, we know it's not perfect, but it's kind of lovely and it kind of works, and we're
proud of it.
We're really proud of it.
Yeah. It totally works. I think that's the part that I really come to it, and it's a great way to be introduced to the game as a whole through that initial layer of some of the rawness that is in that space. I thank you for that answer, because I love and appreciate that a lot, knowing that you do see that kind of transition. You can see you all get, you know, better in the craft kind of through the process of the game, which is also super cool. Also, thank you for the waveform, because I have tried my own brain of like trying to do all the things at the same time and then also listen for euphemisms that I am not used to. And I was like, when I was like, oh, tit wank is fine. Oh, why is he like that's not? I was like, I wouldn't censor that. Why would you censor that? That's not a thing that I would play by.
Absolutely fine.
And I was like, oh, that's the thing I'm supposed to censor. And go hit the button super quick to try to do that. So I appreciate that kind of just visual styling to help people kind of get through that part. I do want to talk about, because we're almost run out of time. This is blown by. Is the story itself, because I think that the beauty of what your game is able to do is be really time sensitive in the way that it gets to talk about social commentary and all the things that you're getting a chance to talk to through this kind of dark satirical comedy layer, right? How fun was it to be able to get all the gripey angstiness stuff out of your head and into a game like this?
I wish we had written a story about 4 game devs that become millionaires. Because I'm not joking. For good and for bad, everything we have pretty much written within this game has happened in real life.
Yeah.
And after we have written this, you know, we wrote about the naked protesters happening. We filmed that. About 2 months later in Parliament, we had naked protesters.
Literally the slogans written on their body.
Then we bought the male contraceptive pill. About 4 weeks ago, a story comes out. The male contraceptive pill is now been proven to be 98% effective.
Yep.
The exact thing that we've got in our game. The whole kind of the Russia conflict that's happening at the moment with a news station, and they were attacking towers and stuff. You know, it is so. There's so many storylines that have, and that's a real credit to the writers.
Yeah, to be fair to Alan J, they did a lot of research, obviously, and as you say, a lot of it is obviously a response to the world we're in, right? Yeah. And these are things, and these are problems, and these are ideals, and just ways to vent and things like that. So they will be feeding off that. But I think credibility to their writing is the fact that, as I say, this stuff just keeps happening. Yeah.
The real world is dystopian, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's crazy. But the comedy sketches are when we get to. I mean, I write nothing for the game apart from, like, for example, Titwank Tony is the name that I came up with. If it's a smutty joke, if it's a kind of
we need a knob gag.
Yeah. If you need a knob gag, it's normally Dan.
Or sports. That's what you got.
Yeah, I was going to say sports commentary and. So, like Johnny Hamsleeve, that character, being able to write his backstory and understand the sport that he would be in and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's those. What I really love is we watch it between us in the office. Huge fans of like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
we watch. The Day to Day is a huge influence on this game. We watch a lot of sort of like the Daily Mash and those kind of. Those political kind of satires we really like. Not the 9 o'clock news back in the day was, you know, so we've always been around those kind of funny shows. And that was something that we all really wanted to.
Funny has been big for us the whole way through.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you look at like our earlier games as well, which are, I mean, they're a different animal to where we are now, obviously, in terms of we didn't know what we were going to do in studio. We didn't really know where we were going. We thought it might be fun. And obviously where we've ended up is very different. But the one thing that is still, I think for us, is very important. We even did a talk about this once at one of the EGXs, right? Is humor in video games.
Yeah,
that's really important to us. And
Definitely.
Although the social commentary is really important and the dystopian story is brilliant and there's a terrific underlining story throughout the whole game, without that comedy light breaks, this game would be really too intense to deal with.
So bleak.
You know, it needs those breakaways to just kind of loosen the mood and for people to relax a little bit and go, oh, actually, this is okay. Like,
and I think it's really important as well. Al and Jay have done such a good job, and it's not for everyone, but obviously, that, you know, that's art. That's games.
It's not for me. I don't like the game.
But those highs, like some of the gut punches that we deliver in Not For Broadcast, you only really feel them is because you just come off like some stupid sitcom where they've come down and the set has almost fall down, and then suddenly this really bad thing happens, and you go from laughing like, what are these maniacs doing? They're clearly, you know, they're stupid. And then suddenly, oh God, did that really just happen? And it's that switch that we kind of want to capture. And
it's the Ricky Gervais switch, isn't it? That he does so well.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I love about all of that is, well, because I know that I was finishing. Well, I was playing some before we got on today last night, and I had just had a really long day of a lot of stuff that was happening. And you were right. The jokes land in a way that was like, oh man, I needed that right now. Like I was like, oh, I needed that good energy to be like in there. And I like the fact that it's a little bit edgy. I love the fact that it's off color. I love the fact that like in a space where you can't tell the inappropriate joke anymore because everyone is like, everybody is mad. It was nice to feel like it was just at that spot that is cheeky enough, funny enough, and smart enough that it hits those layers where even when it hits the inappropriate thing, you were like, why are you, you just don't have any pants on? Oh, okay. Like, it just felt really nice to be able to have that space to be able to get to be there. So, thank you for not being afraid to be able to tell the off-color joke in a space where you can't tell the off-color joke anymore, right? So I think that's been nice. Yeah, that was awesome. So I'll say this. I really do love that idea that you kind of broached about like, so what if we played around in the deepfake space in this thing? That's something no one has ever done before. That would be kind of rad to be able to see you all do it. But before I let you go, I know that you have stories upon stories now that you would want to make for the next game or for the next conversation that you want to do. Do you think you'd still want to stay in the FMV space and kind of do more things in that layer?
I think it's safe to say, as Dan said earlier, I mean, this is, and kind of as I touched on earlier, like, Tiny Build funded us to get to this point to see if FMV would be a viable kind of market, right? Yeah. FMV hasn't been, certainly in recent time, you have things like Her Story and things, but it's very much minor and very niche, right? So we're trying to see if we can get that to be a bit more viable. It's definitely where our skill set lies. We don't have, I would say probably, certainly at the moment, the programming chops to be able to go outside that. Whereas if we can deliver the story, the satire, things like that, FMV really plays into our skill set. And I mean, we've definitely got ideas of what we're going to do next.
100%. I mean, I'm out of a job if we don't do FMV, so I'm absolutely doing FMV again. But also, like as we say, we're just getting started in this niche. Like there's so much we can do in FMV, and we've already broken boundaries. You know, we've broken world records in making this game. Yeah. You know, we want to keep pushing it further and further and see how far we can go. It's pointless just breaking into a niche and then finishing. You know, we are now what we would consider the world leaders in FMV, in this style of FMV, because no one's done it before. Yeah. That's not to say that there aren't better people out there that could do it. They just haven't done it yet. So we are the world leaders of it because we're the only people that are doing it this way. Therefore, we need to keep striving forward and being better. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, FMV that's our little home, and we're making it our home, and we want it to, we want to just continue building and being better. And and there's terrific games out there. Her Story was a huge like inspiration for us in terms of, okay, FMV can work, because that was a really clever way of using FMV in a different way that wasn't like the old way, not the way that we wanted to use it, but it showed that FMV can be used differently. And and I mean, Sam's a brilliant. I mean, he's just a clever dude, really. And so that's so there's a lot of inspiration to be taken. And there's other games like Sam is bringing out a new game. Again, he's pushing FMV further. We're trying to go. So I think we're going to stay. I think we're going to stay here. And if we don't, I'll be starting up my own podcast and challenging you for a job. So.
Come on over. I need a co-host. I'll snag you. Come through and come hang out. Well, gents, thank you both for going down this path. Thank you both for deciding that FMV is not dead and that you want to kind of dig into it and make it this wonderful space. I'm having a blast playing it. I actually stopped my run because I was starting off in chapter 2, and I was like, oh no, I got to stream this. I can't just like play this on my own and just like not have people watch this. So you've done such a fantastic job. If you ever need a bald black man in any of your stuff, I'm totally down to help you with it.
There's always a need for a bald black man.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll be in the back. I'll be like, hi, I don't know what Titwink is, but now I know what Titwink is. We'll figure it out. Gents, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you both, and I hope that when you have your next game out in the world, please come back. We'll find a way to get you on and hang out and talk.
Can we just say that this, doing podcasts like this, they blow our mind that people actually want to talk to us about this game that we have made. So thank you so much for wanting to have us on, and also to everyone that's watching this, and especially our community that we have built, on our Discord and things like that. It absolutely blows our mind that anybody would be vaguely interested in playing our little game that we have made to make ourselves laugh.
Yeah, exactly.
And the fact that, you want to have us on a podcast and people want to sit and watch this, and, it really does blow our mind. So thank you very much for having us on.
The most unexpected pleasure, I think, having this reaction, and we are so grateful for it. We really are.
This is what happens when you make great stuff. This is what happens. This is what
we'll
happens.
take it. Thank you.
This is what happens.
We should definitely come back when we do the next
one.
It is here for you. It's here for you. Thank you so much for being here, folks. We're going to be right back in 1 second with our sign off. But thank you again for checking out this Epic sponsored content. You can go check out all the work that we're doing under Something Epic on our YouTube channel, and we'll be right back after this.